The transparent palm was silent, and even with Lin Moyu's keen soul, there was only a trace of sensation. When he sensed it, his palm had already landed on the back of Hao Duozen's head. Holy Lord, Hao didn't react at all during the whole process. When his palm came down, he staggered and then spun in place in the starry sky, completely out of control. Lin Moyu felt that this palm was very clever. It seemed to have some special rules. Although it had no offensive power, it made Bai Xingzuan very embarrassed. After spinning for more than 100 times, Wu Xingzuan finally stopped. He shouted at the Human Emperor Network, "Human Emperor, you have gone too far." The Human Emperor's voice sounded faintly, "It's not too much, you know it in your heart." Wu Xingzuan shouted, "I don't know what you know." Renhuang Network's voice was extremely calm, without any emotion, but it made Lin Moyu couldn't help laughing. He felt that Renhuang Network was a little angry. Although he didn't express it, this feeling was very strange. Renhuang Network continued, "If you don't understand, I'll pat you a few more times to make you think." Saint Hao immediately waved his hand and said, "No need. This is the home court of Renhuang Network. Whether you have figured it out or not, a hero should not suffer the immediate losses as a saint. There is no benefit in arguing with the Human Emperor Network here, even if he is the Holy Lord." Lin Moyu listened to their conversation and probably knew why Renhuang Network was angry. 9 times out of 10, the problem lies in what Saint Hao said. I remember what he said, you can read more if you want. The Human Emperor is thick-skinned and will not be shy. Obviously, the Human Emperor is not thick-skinned. The body of Renhuang Network is Renhuang's body. If you see too much of it, Renhuang will be unhappy. However, this incident also allowed Lin Moyu to see the power of the Human Emperor Network. Its body is between virtual and real, and it has both virtual and real powers. Lin Moyu knows very well that the fusion of virtual and real power will produce a qualitative change and become extremely powerful. Just like his skeleton hell, only by incorporating the law of immortality, the skeleton hell has become several times more powerful, and its scope has expanded to tens of billions of kilometers in diameter. He once guessed that the power of Tianzuan is the combination of virtual and real power areas. It seems that the Human Emperor Network is also one of the foundations of the human race, no worse than Xing Lao. The human race is more than just a heritage. After all, they are the masters of this world, so it is natural for them to be stronger than alien races. Lin Moyu said to the Human Emperor Network, "Human Emperor, I will practice here for a while." The Human Sovereign Network emits rays of light, pointing to the training rooms in the distance. These training rooms were lit up one after another, and the voice of the Human Emperor Network also sounded, "These are all empty training rooms, you can choose one at will." Lin Moyu said to Wu Xingzuan, "Then I will go practice, thank you Senior." Saint Hao waved his hand, "Go ahead and wish you good luck." Choosing a training room at random, Lin Moyu stepped out and entered it. The door to the practice room closed automatically, completely isolating yourself from the world. Except for the Human Emperor Network, no one will know what happened in the training room. Wu Xingzuan said, "Human Emperor, take care of this. No need for you to remind me." Human Emperor Network's tone was still calm, but it was obvious that his anger was still there. Saint Hao said, "Human Emperor, you are a bit tempered today." The Human Emperor ignored him. Wu Xingzuan smiled and walked away in a wise manner. On the way back, he greeted a group of people from the other side realm. Fortunately, when the Human Emperor's palm came down just now, he was already behind him and was not seen by these other side realm people. Otherwise, there really would be no place for his holy old face. The huge body of the Red Star Supreme rotated slowly, red flames erupted, and the appearance of an old man wearing a red robe was projected in the flames. This is the human image transformed by the Red Star Supreme. The Red Star Supreme looked into the distance and murmured, "Who is here? Why does it feel familiar?" A spot of light quickly magnified in front of his eyes, and Red Star Supreme finally saw it clearly. With a slightly moved expression, "It turns out to be a world of rules." He said loudly, "May I ask which Supreme Being is here?" The world of rules also cast a figure, and at the same time the voice of the 100 Battles Supreme sounded, "Brother Red Star, it's me." Red Star Supreme's face suddenly showed joy. "Brother Baijan." The 100 Battles Supreme laughed, "A little crazy, it's great that you are still alive." The Red Star Supreme saw that something was not right with the 100 Battles Supreme. The 100 Battles Supreme in front of him was not his true body, nor his soul, but just a remnant soul. Involuntarily, sadness filled the eyes of the Red Star Supreme. "Brother Baijan, you still died in the battle." He also knows the character of the 100 War Supreme, who will fight to the death and die in 100 battles. Anyone can escape, but it is impossible for the Supreme One. This is his way, so firm. Baijan Jizuan didn't care. "Brothers Red Star, there is no need to be sad. I am walking my own path. No matter what the outcome is, there is no need to be sad." Red Star Supreme looked at him. "How did Brother Baijan find me?" Baijan Supreme recounted his encounter with Lin Moyu. "It was that little guy who woke me up. Over the years, I have also absorbed a lot of power. Although I cannot be resurrected, I can still retain the consciousness of the residual soul. I would also like to thank the little guy named Lin Moyu, otherwise I don't know how many years I would have been sleeping." Over the past 2 million years, the Red Star Supreme has awakened several times, but each time it did not last long. In addition, the outer space is too vast, so for so many years, the two have never met. The 100 Battles Supreme said some ancient things. The Red Star Supreme was severely injured and left the battlefield early, and was not clear about what happened next. Now after hearing what Baijan Jizong said, coupled with what Lin Moyu said, the whole thing finally came together. The Supreme Lord of 100 Wars was indignant. "Those heavenly lords are all cowards who abandoned the world without caring about it." Red Star Supreme sighed. "Maybe Tianzuan also has his own difficulties." Baijan Supreme didn't believe what Red Star Supreme said at all. "Brother Red Star, you don't have to make excuses for them. These heavenly lords are just like that. They are all selfish and centered on themselves. As long as they can survive, the regiment will not care about anything else." Red Star Supreme said, "Don't talk about the past anymore, let's talk about the future." Baijan Jizuan said, "The big world, which is good, still has a future. Maybe there is. Regardless of whether there is anything, there is always something to be done. Okay, I'll listen to you. In my current state, I can't do anything else except kill people." Red Star Supreme was not polite. "I have considered a plan before, let's do it step by step. There is still time, there is no rush." On the back of the Human Emperor Network, Lin Moyu enters the training room. He discovered that this practice room was not an entity, but was made entirely of energy, a state of creation out of nothing. This is the product of the Human Emperor Network's interference in reality. What is the realm of the Human Emperor Network? It is very strong. Lin Moyu was thinking, when suddenly 2 beams of light appeared in front of his eyes. The appearance of Xing Lao appeared in one beam of light, and a vague figure appeared in another beam of light. Lin Moyu looked at the other party and knew the other party's identity in his heart, the Human Emperor. Xing Lao squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "Our realm is called Half-Step Supreme." Lin Moyu saluted the two of them. "I've met Mr. Xing, I've met the Human Emperor." Mr. Xing was a little surprised. "How do you know he is the Human Emperor?" Lin Moyu said, "His hands." "His hand?" Xing Lao looked at the Human Emperor in confusion, but didn't see anything from the Human Emperor's hands. Just because he can't see it doesn't mean Lin Moyu can't see it. When the Human Emperor struck Holy Lord Hao just now, the palm that appeared was exactly the same as the palm of the person in front of him. From this, Lin Moyu is 90% sure that this person is the Human Emperor. The Human Emperor's voice sounded, "Your insight is surprising." Lin Moyu said, "Prisoner Phoenix deserves the prize." The Human Emperor spoke calmly, "I never exaggerate. It is indeed surprising. It surpasses everyone in the human race, including him." The person the Human Emperor refers to as Mr. Xing. Mr. Xing was not angry either. He smiled and said, "Old man, I am old and have dazzled eyes. It is normal for me to not see clearly. After he finished speaking, he looked at Lin Moyu and said, Boy Lin, do you know why we came to you? Lin Moyu smiled and said, I don't know everything. How could I know? Mr. Xing doesn't seem to be in a hurry at all. Why don't you take a guess? The human emperor interrupted Mr. Xing, stop talking nonsense and talk about business. 283 Mr. Xing sighed, you are so boring. Then let's get down to business. When you were talking to Xiao Wuzi and Xiao Tiantian, Ren Na and I were listening. We feel that you should be hiding something, and the Human Emperor Network sensed that you have the aura of the boundary seashell on your body. It turned out that this was the case. Lin Moyu couldn't help but smile. I originally planned to come to you after a while, but I didn't expect you to come on your own initiative. Lin Moyu took out the Jiahai Bei and said, I accidentally got the Jiahai Bei and saw something. The human emperor stared at Jiahai Bei. His eyes changed slightly. Have you seen Jiahai? Lin Moyu nodded. I saw it. Xing Lao took a breath. This kind of luck. TSK. Even in ancient times, there were very few people who could get the world seashell. How's it going? How's the view of Jiahai? Lin Moyu shook his head. It's not good. Tianqing Zun was right when he wandered around. We are indeed about to collide with the world. Xing Lao put away his smile and his expression became serious. How long will it take? 1,400 years. This number greatly exceeded Mr. Xing's expectations. Xing Lao frowned. It's faster than I expected. I originally estimated it would be around 10,000. There is a difference of 7 times between 10,000 years and 1,400 years, and the accuracy of this estimate is also very different. Xing Lao looked at the human emperor and said, let Xiao Tiantian prepare and travel again as soon as possible to see if he can encounter that world again. Let him remember the feeling of his last fugue. If he enters that world, he should look carefully and gather as much information as possible. The human emperor closed his eyes, obviously sending a message. A few seconds later, the human emperor said, we have been notified. The heavenly saint said that we will have to prepare for a few more days. After all, it has not been long since the last divine journey ended, and there are still some materials that need to be prepared. Old Xing said, if you need any materials, ask him to get them from the treasure house. He knows it and doesn't need us to teach him. Xing Lao once again turned his attention to Lin Moyu. Boy, how do you think we should deal with it? Is there a chance after 1,400 years? Lin Moyu said, there is a chance, and it's hard to say whether this is a blessing or a curse for us. Xing Lao became interested. Tell me, what do you think? Lin Moyu originally wanted to discuss the matter with Xing Lao, but now Xing Lao came to him on his own initiative and took the human emperor with him, so he simply expressed his thoughts. As a human being, Mr. Xing holds a different position, and his knowledge far exceeds that of the other saints. Discuss with him and you may be able to get some results. Lin Moyu explained the Red Star Supreme's plan for the 10,000 stars formation, and also talked about his own method of saving the world. Xing Lao was moved when he heard this and kept thinking, according to Red Star Supreme, there is no Kaizun in that world. Lin Moyu said, as long as there is no Tianzuan, we have a chance. I have the body of the mountain and forest supreme, and I should be able to kill the supreme of the same realm. Xing Lao also knows Lin Moyu's magic. Cab, the corpse is his weapon. He can use the corpse to instantly kill enemies of the same realm. Xing Lao murmured, in this case, it is indeed an opportunity. Lin Moyu said, but before that, we must first make peace and untie the big world. The big world has been too heavily pressed by cause and effect, and the runes of the big world have been overwhelmed. The human emperor spoke in a calm tone, then kill them all. Xing Lao said, although the alliance of hundreds of clans is a ragtag group of people, once united, their strength cannot be underestimated. The human emperor said, that's because we don't want to pay too much. After all, we have sacrificed too much, but if we want to solve other problems, sacrifice is inevitable. The human emperor said the cruelest words in the calmest tone. Sacrifice is inevitable, and this is indeed the case. In a race war, there will never be a sacrifice. Someone must be at the forefront. Mr. Xing did not quite agree with what the human emperor said. Although sacrifices are inevitable, we can still control them and minimize them. We still have time, and we don't want to decide the outcome immediately. The human emperor said, it's only 1,400 years. If the 10,000 stars array is to be properly arranged, it will take hundreds of years. We only have 500 years at most. 500 years seems like a long time, but it is actually very short. In the disaster 100,000 years ago, the human race was not defeated immediately, but lasted for more than 3,000 years. Now facing the same alliance of hundreds of tribes, it is indeed difficult to end the war within a few hundred years. And the result we want now is not just victory, but killing all the aliens without leaving a single one behind. The Human Emperor Network analyzed the strength comparison between the two sides. Regardless of the number of saints, the number of other shore realms, the powerful ones in the divine realm, or the strongest clan background, the human race does not have an advantage compared to the alliance of hundreds of clans. Even slightly at a disadvantage. Just based on the superficial balance of power, it is almost impossible to end the war within a few hundred years. Xing Lao said, it's impossible for us alone, not to mention 500 years, even 5,000 years. Our original plan was to use 10,000 years to encroach on each race bit by bit, and finally win. The whole plan may last tens of thousands of years, but now. The human emperor looked at Lin Moyu. Now, you are the only variable. If you want to solve the war within a few hundred years, look no further than Lin Moyu. Mr. Xing chuckled. Do you feel a lot of pressure? Lin Moyu looked relaxed and didn't seem to care. There is pressure to have motivation. Although 500 years is a short time, it is not impossible. Xing Lao smiled and said, then it all depends on you. If you need anything, just say it. As long as we have it, we will take care of it. Human Emperor said, I have given you the highest authority in the Human Emperor Network. All information is open to you. If you need it, contact me at any time. Lin Moyu asked, how is my sister? The human emperor said, she is very good. She has reached the peak of the gods, and is probably about to enter the other side. But now she is practicing, and I didn't tell her about your return. Lin Moyu said in a deep voice, tell my sister, you can't take shortcuts to get promoted to the other side, you have to get through it yourself. Good. The formations in the training room began to operate, the space expanded, and time accelerated. The training room here is equipped with a large number of formations to assist training, and the time formation is one of them. It can accelerate time up to 100 times. If you practice here for 100 days, only one day will pass in the outside world. Lin Moyu has used Time House before and knows the difference. Under a 100-fold acceleration state, the laws will be distorted, and the difficulty of understanding the laws will increase. Overall, the real efficiency is only increased by 20 to 30 times. And the stronger the law to be practiced, the effect of time acceleration will be further weakened. Later, when I was practicing in the Divine City, because I had to practice the laws of space and time, time acceleration would not be of any help to my practice, so it was useless. What he wants to practice now is runes and does not involve laws. Lin Moyu thought that he could try to use time acceleration to buy himself more time. After all, he only had 50 years to retreat this time. If his idea was feasible, he could turn 5,000 years into 5,000 years. The human race is very pressed for time now, and so is the big world. He must seize every bit of time and not waste it. According to the description in the Inheritance of Holy Talisman Tianzuan, if an ordinary genius wants to fully understand this inheritance, it will take at least 10,000 years, or even longer. What Saint Talisman Tianzuan has learned all his life is not so easy to master. Even top geniuses cannot fully understand it without thousands of years. Lin Moyu knows that he has a special talent for runes, and may be able to surpass the top geniuses and make the time shorter. Time was accelerated to 100 times, the laws were obviously distorted, and the lines of the laws began to become chaotic. Lin Moyu raised his hand and started drawing runes, and a rune was generated on his fingertips. Wrong. Under the acceleration of time, Zaiwen also experienced slight deformation. Lin Moyu frowned. The reason why the runes were deformed was because his movements were slightly deformed when he was drawing the runes. The root cause is still caused by the acceleration of time. This slight deformation would have little impact if used to draw ordinary runes. But if you draw complex runes or talisman arrays, the impact will be amplified. Every tiny difference, when combined together, will greatly weaken the effect of the runes, or even cause the entire rune array to collapse. 100 times the time, no. After trying several times, Lin Moyu felt that he was too optimistic and thought that time acceleration would not affect the runes, but this was obviously not the case. The change of time affects all aspects, and it is impossible to have no impact at all. In desperation, we can only adjust the time flow rate and slow it down little by little. The time flow rate gradually decreases in steps of 10 times. Every time it drops 10 times, Lin Moyu tries to draw the runes and carefully feels the changes in the runes. Try and adjust again and again. Finally, when the flow rate of time dropped to 20 times, the influence of time finally disappeared. In this state, the runes drawn are the same as usual. Lin Moyu tried several more times and found that 24 times was the limit, even twice more would not work. Lin Moyu suddenly realized something. His mastery of the law of time is 24%, and the impact of time on himself is also limited to 24 times. It seems that the stronger the law of time I master, the weaker the influence of time on me. 24 times is 24 times. 50 years will turn into 1,200 years. Let's see what level I can reach in these 1,200 years. At least master all the runes and talisman arrays except the ancient talismans. Lin Moyu set a goal for himself, then calmed down and started practicing. When practicing the runes, Lin Moyu also separated a little bit of his mind and continued to practice the starlight method. Starlight refining does not require much effort. Lin Moyu has long been accustomed to it. Now there are more than 90 stars in his soul world, and he is only one step away from 100 stars. The starlight refining method is not affected by the speed of time. The speed of the starlight coming in from the outside world will not change, and the speed of the starlight refining method will not change either. The stars are increasing at a rate of 1 every 10 days, neither fast nor slow, very stable. Lin Moyu also has his own requirements for starlight refining. He hopes that when he reaches the Supreme Saint and truly builds a world of rules, he can reach 10,000 stars. To build a powerful world of rules, it must at least reach the level of perfection mentioned by the mysterious master, and even surpass perfection. Time passes day by day. In the past 20 years, the human race has intensified its attacks on various races and has become more and more powerful. The army formed by the alliance of hundreds of tribes, from the beginning, won more and lost less, but later each won half and half. Until now, it has become more defeated than won. In the past 20 years, many geniuses have emerged in the human race, all of whom are powerful in battle and can fight beyond their level. This surprised all the races, but most of them thought that these people were secretly cultivated geniuses by the human race, but they were only brought out now. Only the human race themselves know that this is not the case at all. The battlefield is the best training. Xing Lao and Ren Huang jointly formulated a new strategy. They want to use the battlefield to hone the cultivators. Of course, the changes in the situation on the battlefield are also related to the ghost tribe. In the past 20 years, the clan's focus has not been on the battlefield, but on setting up powerful barriers. They are afraid that the ghost tribe will appear again. If a few more races are swallowed up, the alliance of hundreds of tribes will no longer be able to contain hundreds of tribes. At that time, people will be in panic. How much fighting power will the alliance have? As soon as the Demon Clan was busy, the battlefield was handed over to the command of the Golden Eagle Clan. The Golden Eagle Clan also had its own ideas. They did not want their own clansmen to suffer too many sacrifices. So they have been unwilling to have a head-on battle with the Ru clan. This is also the reason that led to the reversal of victory and defeat between the alliance of hundreds of races and the human race in the past 20 years. But in these years, the ghost tribe never appeared again. It disappeared, as if it had never been there. The ghost tribe is as elusive as its name. In the huge palace, all the powerful men from the 100 Clans Alliance gathered together. Everyone's eyes fell on the Demon Lord of the Abyss. The Demon Lord of the Abyss looked gloomy, and his aura was as breathless as a dark cloud. Obviously, the Demon Lord of the Abyss was not in a good mood at this moment. The Abyss Demon Lord's voice was extremely gloomy. In another 10 years, the results of all races will be arranged. This is already the strongest barrier for our demon clan. There are Abyss demonic eyes monitoring the barrier. As long as the ghost clan appears, they will definitely be able to monitor it. This is what my demon tribe should do. We are an alliance and a whole, but there was murderous intention in the voice of the Demon Lord of the Abyss. But what have you done in the past 2,000 years? The army retreated and did not engage in direct combat with the human race, which ruined the originally good situation. I know you don't want your people to sacrifice, but this is war. How can you not sacrifice? What did we say when we formed the alliance? Let's work together to attack the human race. The effort mentioned here is a real effort, not a pretense. As he spoke, he looked at the Black Gold Saint of the Golden Eagle clan. He had been commanding the battlefield for the past 20 years, and he was half responsible for the current situation. The Black Gold Saint was extremely thick-skinned and remained unmoved. The golden light from his scales flashed and he smiled. We cannot care about temporary gains and losses in our battle with the human race. Moreover, it only lasts for 20 years, so it is nothing. What you said at the time was that we must first pacify the internal situation in order to fight against the outside world, so we also wanted to destroy the ghost race first, and then let the group fight against the human race. It's better to wait until the barriers are all set up and all races have no worries, then we can deal with the human race with all our strength. Let's do this. When the time comes, we will attack the human race with all our strength and test the current strength of the human race. The Demon Lord of the Abyss stared at him without speaking, but the atmosphere became even more depressing. The Black Gold Saint also smiled and did not shrink back. No race is willing to sacrifice itself. The best result is for others to sacrifice more while retaining their own strength. This kind of thinking is understandable, and it is all about considering one's own race. But when every race thinks like this, the alliance already exists in name only. Although the Demon Lord of the Abyss was very unhappy, he couldn't break out on the spot. In the end, he suppressed his breath and said, "Then wait until the barrier is set up, and then we will have a good fight with the human race." 11. But I have something to say first. If anyone fails to contribute in this battle, don't blame me for being rude. The Black Gold Saint laughed and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely do my best. When the time comes, my new clan, the other side, will serve you a drink." The Blood Ox Holy Lord smiled and said, "That flesh and blood belongs to me. I heard that the flesh and blood on the other side of the human race is very delicious. Old Nyo, I also want to taste it." Another 10 years have passed, and 30 years have passed since the Ghost Tribe last appeared, 92E. The battle between the alliance of hundreds of races and the human race continues, and the human race still maintains a record of more wins than defeats. Although there were a lot of casualties among the human race, it was much better than the alliance of 100 races. In the battle after battle, the geniuses that emerged from the human race continued to improve their cultivation levels. In these 30 years alone, the number of people who have become gods is more than in the previous hundreds of years. Growing up in the flames of war, the resilience of the human race was constantly discovered. The demon clan's barriers have finally been placed in every race, and the Abyss Beholders have all taken action. They use the fire of the Abyss to monitor each barrier. As long as the Ghost Tribe appears, they will be discovered, and the strong men of each tribe will rush over as soon as possible to strangle the Ghost Tribe. In their opinion, the fact that the ghost race did not choose a race with the other side realm only shows that they are not strong enough to deal with the other side realm. Except for the Blood Ox Holy Lord, no one takes the Ghost Clan seriously. When all the barriers were completed, the alliance of hundreds of clans began to take action according to the plan set that year. The army was mobilized and the strong men came out. Outside the human Suzaku Star territory, 100 light-years away, there are a large number of battleship wreckage floating here, as well as countless magic weapon fragments and countless corpses. One of the battlefields between the alliance of 100 races and the human race is here. The battle has been going on for decades. The fighting has been going on for decades. The casualties on both sides are countless. When the number of casualties increased to hundreds of millions, it was simply appalling. The cruelty of racial wars, all kinds of wars, are simply unimaginable in the small world of Haka. But everyone knows that this is a real war, life or death. There is always a sense of urgency within the human race. From the Human Emperor Network to the top leaders of the human race, everyone is telling everyone that if they cannot win this battle, they will die. As a result, the potential of the human race was stimulated, and every battle was performed at an extraordinary level. The human army is stationed in the starry sky, and its number exceeds 100 million. War fortresses are lined up one after another, thousands of powerful fortresses, exuding an astonishing aura. In the fortress, formations were moving, like huge eyes, monitoring the starry sky. Outside the fortress, there are countless battleships, which also form battle formations and can unleash astonishing combat power at any time. The god of war fortress flew in from afar and blended into the army silently. In the fortress, dozens of strong men were sitting in the conference hall, and the one at the top was the sword master. On the right-hand side of the sword saint is a beautiful woman, and on the left is space. After the war saint arrived, he went directly to the seat to the left of the sword saint and sat down. The sword saint gently tapped his finger on the table, making a crisp sound, like the sound of a sword. The entire conference hall suddenly became quiet, and everyone's eyes fell on the sword saint. However, a few people's eyes fell on the woman on the right-hand side of the sword master from time to time. The main reason was that this woman was so beautiful that people couldn't help but look at her. Even though this place is all in the other shore realm, everyone has lived for thousands of years and has seen beautiful women a long time ago. Their Taoist hearts are firm and strong, but they are still firmly attracted. But the woman didn't care about other people's eyes. She leaned lazily on the chair and closed her eyes slightly, as if she was falling asleep. Sitting next to the sword master, she can still be so lazy, which shows the strong character of the woman. The sword saint had no objection to the woman's behavior, and his eyes swept over everyone like a sword. The armies of all races are already mobilizing, and they will be here for a head-on collision with us. Decades after the war began, both sides have been training their troops, and the gods above have not taken too much action. But this time is different. They will dispatch the Holy Lord, the other side, and a large number of gods. Currently, there are 3 saints known to be able to take action, namely the Abyss Demon Lord, the Black Gold Saint, and the Blood Oxen Saint. In addition, there are about 60 people in the other side. I ask you to be prepared to fight this battle. We can only win this battle, not lose. In the human army, the words of the Sword Saint are the highest order, and no one dares to disobey her orders. Military orders are like mountains, not just spoken casually. 0. Then the sword master entered various arrangements and assigned tasks to each other's side realm. A war of this scale will affect a vast star field, and the scope of influence may be as high as several light years. Even in the other side of the world, it takes time to support each other, so arrangements must be made before the battle, and no mistakes can be made in every position. After the meeting ended, everyone from the other shore realm left and went to make arrangements according to the arrangements of the sword master. Even the dozen or so people from the other shore realm brought by the War Saint Lord were properly arranged by the Sword Saint Lord. The formation continues to operate, attracting the power of the Human Emperor Network. With the help of the Human Emperor Network, the efficiency of the human race is very high. Any order can be transmitted to the ears of every soldier in a very short time. The conference hall became quiet, and only the Sword Saint, the War Saint, and the woman were left. Zhang Xingzuan's eyes couldn't help but fall on the woman. Fairy Han really has an extraordinary temperament. No wonder those old guys can't help but take a few more glances. The woman bowed slightly to the War Saint. Mohan has met the War Saint. Zhang Xingzuan laughed and said, Fairy Han, you don't need to be so polite. I have a good relationship with your brother. If you don't mind, just call me brother. The Sword Saint's eyes shone brightly. Okay, in this case, how should you call me? The War Saint waved his hand and said, we have our own business, don't try to take advantage of me. The Sword Master snorted, I can't let go of the advantage that comes to my door. The War Saint said, if I don't give it to you anyway, there won't even be a 4.0. Seeing the two saints acting like children, Lin Mohan couldn't help but smile. Her smile is like 100 flowers in bloom, pleasing to the eye. The Sword Master waved his hand and said, no kidding, I didn't accept Mohan as my disciple, so you can call him whatever you want. Zhang Xingzuan was stunned for a moment. You confiscated Fairy Mohan as your disciple? Why? The Sword Saint gritted his teeth and squeezed out a few words. I'm not worthy, okay. The War Saint was stunned. He never imagined that the Sword Saint would say such a thing. No matter how terrifying Lin Mohan's talent was, she was still a god at that time. A holy lord actually said that he was not worthy of accepting a god as his disciple. How could this be possible? But now Lin Mohan has become the other side, and can barely match his peers. The Sword Saint didn't want to get into any more entanglement on this matter. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's talk about how to distinguish a saint in the 100 Tribes Alliance. No matter what the Sword Saint said, it seemed that he had already defeated them. He didn't even think about the problem that he couldn't beat. In her eyes, the three saints were like 3 pots of vegetables. It only mattered who would eat which pot. The War Saint said, my War God Spear can be used to restrain the Black Gold Saint without any problem. Lin Mohan said, the Demon Lord of the Abyss has hunted down Mou several times. As a sister, it is natural for me to ask for an explanation from my brother. Zhang Xingzuan looked at Lin Mohan in shock and found that Lin Mohan did not seem to be joking. The Sword Saint didn't seem to have any reaction, but whispered, leave the Blood Ox Saint to me, and I'll chop off his head. In a few words, the 3 saints have been divided into different types. Lin Mohan stood up slowly, then I'll get ready first. She left the conference hall with a gust of fragrance and lotus steps. After she left, the War Saint finally couldn't help but ask, is it possible to face the saint on the other side? The difference between the Other Shore Realm and the Holy Master Realm is very big. The powerful Holy Master can kill the Other Shore Realm in a short time. Zhang Xingzuan can naturally see that Lin Mohan is only in the Other Side Realm, and he is still new to the other side, and the time will not exceed 10 years. The Demon Lord of the Abyss is a veteran saint with a very strong combat power of 20, so even he must be careful in dealing with it. How to fight Lin Mohan, a newcomer on the other side. The Sword Master stood up and said, let's go, I'll take you to see it, and we'll talk as we go. The War Saint followed the Sword Saint and flew out of the fortress, flying among the legions. There is a chilling atmosphere in the legion, and every soldier is full of fighting spirit. After decades of fighting, there have been many casualties. Those who are still here today have been tempered by the flames of war. Even the War Saint was shocked by the fighting spirit of the entire army. He had to exaggerate, the Sword Saint has indeed led the army well. This army no longer has any fear. The Sword Master was not polite, although I have a bad temper and you all call me crazy, when it comes to fighting, you are not as good as me. The War Saint also immediately agreed, what the madman said is just a joke. In terms of fighting, the Sword Saint is indeed outstanding. The Sword Master said, thanks to Lin Moyu, the Shimu ancestral tree he brought back was of great help. Almost all the movements of the 100 Clans Alliance are under our control. We know exactly how many troops, how many other shores, and how many saints the 100 Tribes Alliance will dispatch this time, so we can make targeted arrangements. Zhang Qingzuan also sighed. Indeed, the contribution that little friend Lin has made for our human race is something that few people can match. Lao Sha is currently using the Soul Stone to control the creature in the Shimu ancestral tree. When the creature is born, Lao Sha's combat power will be greatly improved. The Sword Master said he really should improve his strength, otherwise he might die if a real war breaks out in the future. Zhang Qingzuan finally couldn't help but ask, what happened to Fairy Han? I remember that you wanted to accept Fairy Han as your disciple, and you had a conflict with Lin Xiaodu about this. Also, how can you safely let Fairy Han deal with the Abyss Demon Lord? There was a flame of curiosity in his eyes. He had known Sword Master for many years, so he naturally knew that Sword Master was not the kind of person who made random decisions. Although the Sword Master has a bad temper and is a bit crazy, that only means fighting properly. She usually doesn't mess around when it comes to decision making. Otherwise, the human army would not be left in charge of her. Memories appeared in the eyes of the Sword Saint. At that time, I took Mohan into the Sword World, hoping to find an inheritance for her there. You also know the situation in the Sword World. There are many inheritances in it, and there are two strongest inheritances, namely the Sword of Heaven and the Sword of Earth. The War Saint nodded. The Sword of Heaven belongs to the Heavenly Sword Sect, and the Sword of the Earth belongs to the Earth Sword Sect. But I know that someone has obtained the inheritance of the Heavenly Sword Sect, and has also established a sect that is also the Heavenly Sword Sect. In this 100 Clans Alliance War, the people from the Tianjin sect also took action. The Sword Master said, you know only one of them. Tianjin sect is a large ancient sect, and there are many inheritances in the sect. Today's Tianjin sect has only received part of the inheritance, not the top inheritance. They just rebuilt the Tianjin sect to put money on their faces and borrowed the name of the ancient sect. No one has obtained the true inheritance of Tianjin sect so far. Only then did Zhang Qingzuan realize that this was actually the case. He doesn't use a sword and has never been to the Sword World, so he doesn't know much about the Sword World. The Sword Saint continued, I have always wanted to obtain the inheritance of Tianjin sect, but I have never been able to find a way. However, these years have not been without gains. I have learned a more secret information. In ancient times, the strongest sword sect at that time was called the Heaven and Earth Sword Sect. The Heaven and Earth Sword Sect and the Earth Sword Sect were actually two sects separated from the Heaven and Earth Sword Sect. The Sword World was created by the Heaven and Earth Sword Sect. The Heaven and Earth Sword Sect gathered various sword sects at that time and brought their inheritance together to form the Sword World. And this time, the inheritance I most hope Lin Mohan will get is the inheritance of the Heaven and Earth Sword Sect. The War Saint was moved and asked urgently, did she get it? The Sword Saint looked a little weird. You can say I got it, or you can say I didn't get it. These words puzzled the War Saint. He looked at the Sword Saint and waited for the Sword Saint to continue explaining. The Sword World is actually a world of rules. The world of rules should belong to the Supreme. It is filled with the power of the Supreme's rules and is very restrictive. I used the power of my own rules to disturb the inheritance left by the Heaven and Earth Sword Sect, and then tried to get Mohan to come in contact with it. The inheritance of the Heaven and Earth Sword Sect is a sword called the Heaven and Earth Sword. As long as you kowtow to the Heaven and Earth Sword, you will know whether you are qualified to receive the inheritance. To tell you the truth, I have kowtowed before, and I also received an inheritance at that time, but it was not the strongest inheritance. Maybe Tiandijian thinks I'm not qualified enough. But when Lin Mohan kowtowed to the Heaven and Earth Sword, the Heaven and Earth Sword escaped. 923 Zhang Qingzuan was stunned for a moment, and then he said in surprise, escaped? Cowling is nothing more than acknowledging or not acknowledging, so what the hell is that? The Sword Master said, yes, I escaped very quickly. At that time, I heard the scream from the Heaven and Earth Sword. To be precise, it should be the scream from the Sword Spirit. He was very scared. Mohan and I didn't know what to do. Fortunately, only a few minutes later, the Heaven and Earth Sword flew back. Then the heaven and earth sword stopped obediently in front of Lin Mohan, motionless. Jiang Qingzuan suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a sword behind Lin Moyu just now. Many sword practitioners carry swords behind their backs, so he didn't pay much attention at the time. Looking back now, he suddenly realized that the sword seemed a little unusual. Jiang Qingzuan asked, "Could the heaven and earth sword be the one behind Fairy Han?" The sword saint confirmed the war saint's guess. Yes, it was that sword. I asked Mohan afterwards, and she said that she had not received the inheritance from the heaven and earth sword sect. I got the heaven and earth sword, but I didn't get the inheritance of the heaven and earth sword sect. What the hell is this? The sword master said, according to Mohan, the sword spirit of the heaven and earth sword told her that the inheritance of the heaven and earth sword sect was not worthy of her. Jiang Qingzuan's eyes suddenly widened in disbelief. The ancient sect, the sect that created the sword world, their supreme inheritance was actually not worthy of Lin Mohan. Not to mention the war saint, the sword saint was stunned for a long time when he got this answer. But Lin Mohan wouldn't talk nonsense. The sword master could tell that Lin Mohan really didn't get the inheritance of the heaven and earth sword sect. Jiang Qingzuan couldn't help but ask, "So you dare to accept Fairy Han as your disciple?" The sword saint rolled his eyes at him. "Nonsense, even the heaven and earth sword is said to be unworthy of it. How dare I accept it? It won't cost me my life." Jiang Qingzuan thought for a while. "Do you think Fairy Han is the reincarnation of an ancient power?" The sword master said, "The theory of reincarnation is just a legend and has never been proven. I told Lord Tianqing and Lord Hao about this, but they were not sure either." Jiang Qingzuan sighed. "This kind of thing can only be believed to exist, but cannot be believed to exist." The sword master hummed, "Yes, I did think so before, until 30 years ago, I changed my mind." Jiang Qingzuan asked curiously, "What happened recently?" The sword master said, 30 years ago, Lin Mohan had another breakthrough and wanted to be promoted to the other side. I originally thought she was halfway to the other side, and I planned to take her to the battlefield to start a bloody journey to the other side. At that time, Mr. Xing sent a message, which meant that Lin Mohan should rely on his own power to cross the Law Galaxy and achieve success on the other side. The war saint's expression changed again. "It would take thousands of years for even the top genius to set foot on the galaxy by myself. Although the foundation will be stronger, this time is completely wasted. In fact, borrowing the blood path will not affect the achievement of the saint." The sword master said, "I think so too, but Mr. Xing insists that I also use the calendar." The war saint finally understood what was wrong. He broke through 30 years ago and began to cross the galaxy of laws. He did not borrow the blood path. With his own strength, he has now reached the other side. In just 30 years, we have achieved success on the other side. The expression of the war saint could no longer be tense and became distorted and weird. The sword saint couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Lao Zhan, your expression is very funny." As she said this, she also took out a mirror and asked the war saint to look at herself in the mirror, but the war saint could not smile at all. He kept repeating one sentence for 30 years. 30 years have passed? The sword saint corrected him. "It's not 30 years, it's 20 years. It only took Mohan 20 years to cross the Law Galaxy and achieve success on the other side. She has been practicing for the next 10 years. Only then did I know why the sword spirits of Tiendi Sword said that their inheritance was not worthy of Lin Mohan. After stepping into the other side, Lin Mohan awakened a sword skill. This sword skill was so powerful that it had never been seen before. I feel that it is more terrifying than the supreme inheritance of the heaven and earth sword sect. So I think he is the reincarnation of the ancient power, and the legend is true." When the war saint heard this, he was completely speechless. Lin Mohan turned out to be the reincarnation of an ancient power, with inheritance in his blood, but he would only wake up when he reaches the other side. And he knew that there was a blood resonance between Lin Mohan and Lin Moyu. In addition to her own cultivation, as long as Lin Moyu's realm improved, her realm would also improve. In addition, his own cultivation speed is extremely fast, so 1 plus 1, he completely surpasses the previous one. Although Lin Mohan has just reached the other side now, maybe in 100 years, she will become a saint. If Lin Moyu becomes the supreme being, will Lin Mohan become the supreme being? There is no divine path, but it is at least half a step to the supreme level. Coupled with the inheritance in her bloodline, the sword of heaven and earth from ancient times, and its combat power. The war saint suddenly felt that the Abyss Demon Lord was going to be in trouble. Lin Mohan probably won't let him go this time. The Abyss Demon Lord has chased Lin Moyu several times. This time it's his turn to cry. The Sword Saint said, "It's almost done. You can go back and prepare." The Black Gold Saint is not easy to deal with. Don't accidentally get killed by someone else, that would be a tragedy. The War Saint said, "Don't worry, with the War God Spear here, it's not easy to kill him, but it's not difficult to defeat him. Because of the Shimu ancestral tree, all those who have eaten Shimu fruit and later become recipients have become the eyes and ears of the human race. Through them, the human race has a clear understanding of the 100 Races Alliance's plan. Coupled with the original surveillance and intelligence system of the human race, all actions of the 100 Clans Alliance are under the nose of the human race. In fact, when Fu Xingzuan asked people to take over the Shimu ancestral tree, he did not expect that there would be so many people who had eaten Shimu fruit. There are tens of billions at least, distributed among the kings of various clans. Shimugua are all children of the Shimu tribe. Tens of billions of children have been eaten by others. How can the Shimu tribe not hate it? The experience of the Shimu tribe is so tragic that it can be considered even in the big world. It doesn't matter if others are exterminated, they are raised in captivity and become food for others. It's no wonder they have so much resentment among the whole family, cultivating a terrible creature. They hope to use this terrible creature to take revenge on those races. Unfortunately, they failed in the end. The appearance of Lin Moyu destroyed all their plans. The creatures cultivated will also become the thugs of the human race. This is the cruel world. The winner will live, but it also determines the life and death of the loser. The door to the central temple of the divine city, which had been closed for more than 10 years, was opened again. Wu Xingzuan was waiting at the door and flew in immediately after the door opened. The central temple is filled with a strange aura, and the sun formation has not completely stopped. Sitting in the main seat, Tian Xingzuan slowly opened his eyes and exhaled a long breath. This breath flew more than 100 meters away and turned into a thick fog that lingered for a long time. Saint Hao said in a deep voice, "How is it?" Tian Xingzuan looked at Wu Xingzuan with calm eyes. "There is good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" Wu Xingzuan said helplessly, "Stop joking, tell me quickly." Tian Xingzuan stood up slowly, waved his hand, and threw out a set of tea sets. The tea set automatically started making tea. The good news is that I entered that world again, and this time the feud was considered a success. The bad news is that after I entered, the person I attached to was not strong enough and could not get enough complete information. I will put the specific information on the Human Emperor network after I sort it out. You can see it yourself. After wandering around for more than 10 years, the information obtained by Tianqingzhen is somewhat complicated and confusing, and needs to be sorted out. Saint Hao asked, "How many supreme kings are there in their world? Are there any heavenly kings?" "Nothing else is important, only the message of the strongest is important. If there is no Tianzuan, and if there are not too many supremes, then I still have a chance." Tian Xingzuan sorted out the information and said after a few seconds, "The power level in that world is different from ours. Give me some time and I'll finish sorting it out." Saint Hao grunted, "Okay, you sort it out first, I'll wait, don't be in a hurry." Tian Xingzuan drank a few cups of tea, his mind was working rapidly, sorting out the information he had obtained. What he got was not only the basic information of that world, but also the power system and various apparent situations. After sorting it out, he still needed to compare it with the Human Emperor network. Get answers based on various situations in the world. After waiting for 10 days, Tian Xingzuan finally sorted out the information and organized it by the Human Emperor Network. Information about that world is projected. Fighting world. 2 huge characters are revealed in front of you, which are the names of that world. Holy Lord Hao looked at the information brought back by Holy Lord Tian. Not only is he watching, but the Heavenly Saint is also watching. In Dojia Fugue, the amount of information you can obtain by becoming attached to someone in Dojia depends on the person you are attached to. What the dependent sees and hears basically determines the information Tian Xingzuan obtains. If you are attached to a low-level person, you will gain very little information. But if you choose a strong person to attach to, you may be discovered. There will be no danger, problems will cause the fugue to fail. Although it is possible to change the dependence during this period, it is not easy, and if not done correctly, the fugue will be interrupted. Therefore, it is very important to choose a dependent for the first time. The person Tian Xingzuan chooses belongs to the middle level in the fighting world, neither strong nor weak. According to the calculations of the Human Emperor Network, it is equivalent to the level of the God King in the big world, and it can already know enough information. In his fugue state, the Holy Master Tian accepted a lot of information at a loss and wrote it all down like a rote memorization, which was very confusing. Now he also wants to see what information he has brought back. There is only one kind of cultivator in Dojia, called Pingtian. Fighters can get different titles based on their strength. From lowest to strongest, they are the mountain-moving fighter, the sea-splitting fighter, the earth-shattering fighter, the sky-surveying fighter, and the strongest star fighter. According to the information and the realm of the big world, the Human Emperor Network corresponds to 737, the mountain-moving warrior corresponds to the true God, the sea-splitting warrior corresponds to the God King, the earth-shattering warrior corresponds to the God, and the sky-watching warrior corresponds to the other shore. As for moving mountain, they are not of a higher rank in the fighting world, and are collectively called unranked fighters. After reaching the corresponding level, they can summon the battle armor. The summoned battle armor forms of different levels have different powers, which is where the level names come from. The person Tian Xingzuan travels with is a sea-splitting warrior, corresponding to the God King of the big world, and he knows neither too much nor too little information. The strongest person this sea-splitting fighter can come into contact with is the Sky Patrol fighter, who is also the strongest person in their city. It is said that there is a powerful fighter above the sky, called the Starfighter. But this is just a legend, he has never seen it. The name of Starfighter once appeared in Lin Moyu's small world. At that time, there was a force called the Saint Fighter Realm, and the Starfighter was the strongest among them. The Human Emperor Network deduced that the Star Warrior should be the supreme. In other words, the Sky Patrol warriors include the other side and the Holy Lord. The most important thing is that above the Star Warriors, there is also a fighting emperor. Do Emperor is the belief of everyone in the Do world. All fighters must serve Do Emperor. Everyone in the world is Do Emperor's subjects. If we go by this Do Emperor may be Tianzuan. However, Emperor Do is just a legend, Kabi. No one has ever seen it, and there are doubts about its existence. Saint Hao frowned as he looked at it, feeling that it was very troublesome. When Wu Xingzuan was reading this message, the Human Emperor and Xing Lao were also reading the message together. They know more than Saint Hao and others. Xing Lao said, "That Do Emperor, do you think he exists?" The Human Emperor said, "It should exist. Everything has its origin. Just like many myths in the small world, its owner is a strong man in the big world." Xing Lao murmured, "It's going to be difficult now. With Tianzuan here, we have no chance." The Human Emperor shook his head. "He exists, but he may not be in Dojia, and may have left Dusi. Based on the information I obtained yesterday, I made several speculations. The worst result is that if there is a Tianzuan in the Dojia, then we will not have any comrades, and exhaustive arrangements will not have any effect." "Why?" Xing Lao nodded silently. Although some information about Tianzuan in the Human Emperor Network is incomplete, it can be analyzed from the data that Tianzuan is powerful and extremely terrifying. The human emperor continued, the second possibility is that there is no heavenly lord in the fighting world, and that fighting emperor can only be regarded as the pinnacle supreme. After all, the information Xiao Yulin brought back said that there is no Tianzuan in Dojie, which is very credible. Lin Moyu's news came from the Red Star Supreme, and the Red Star Supreme inferred it based on what Lin Moyu saw in the Boundary Sea. After comprehensive analysis, the possibility that there is no Tianzuan in Dojie is indeed not small. On this basis, if you think about the worst, there may be a supreme being. This kind of existence is already quite terrifying, but there are still opportunities in the big world. Xing Lao said, if this is the case, what are our chances? The human emperor closed his eyes and calculated, with our current strength, there is almost a 10% chance. A 10% chance is almost the same as none. Xing Lao smiled bitterly. Well, at least there is a glimmer of hope. The human emperor will not comfort people, and the results he derives are all derived from data. The human emperor said, the third possibility is that perhaps a long time ago, a powerful man that we can't imagine passed through Dojie and left a legacy there. That strong man has become a myth, and he is the emperor in the hearts of all Dojie people. This result is very beneficial to us, and our deployment success rate can be increased to 40%. At the same time, an accident is most likely to occur. We may offend a strong man, causing him to directly destroy the world. Xing Lao sighed, my head hurts, it's more troublesome than fishing, isn't there a better result? Yes, there is a possibility that the Do Emperor in Dojie is made up by others, but this possibility is extremely small, less than 10%. The Emperor tells the truth, neither exaggerating nor minimizing. In Xing Lao's view, anything less than 10% means nothing. Mr. Xing frowned and squeezed out the Chinese character Sichuan. Besides the various arrangements in our plan, is there any other way? Human Emperor said, there is, but the risk factor is small. Xing Lao's eyes lit up. What can we do? The human emperor pointed his finger, and the starry sky of the big world appeared in front of his eyes, and then several red dots appeared on it. Every red dot exudes the smell of blood and seems to carry some kind of danger. There are 6 red dots in total, 3 of which are outside the domain and are extremely far away from the space inside the domain. The 3 in the domain are not all in the human star domain. There is only 1 red in the human star domain, and it is in the divine city star domain. Xing Lao naturally recognized these 6 places. You mean ancient ruins? The human emperor said, yes, according to the information currently known, there may have been a heavenly lord who died in battle in ancient times, and someone who was at the peak of the supreme being. Their bodies will never decay, so they should be inside. With Lin Moyu's technique, if you can get a Tianzuan corpse, there is no need to worry even if there is a Tianzuan in the fighting world. Xing Lao looked at the star map, and the 6 scarlet light spots on it were shining like wild beasts trying to eat people, which made people frightened. Xing Lao sighed, there are many ancient ruins, and we are trying our best to explore them. But these 6 places are the 6 most dangerous places known so far. Human Emperor said, the more dangerous it is, the higher the possibility. Not to mention Tianzuan, even if the Supreme Lord dies in battle, the world of his rules may be destroyed, but it may not be completely destroyed, and there will still be residues. The remaining rules of the world evolved automatically and turned into ancient ruins everywhere. Depending on the strength of the Supreme Being during his lifetime, how much remains of the rule world, and the dangers of the evolved ancient ruins are also very different. Some ancient ruins that are less dangerous require a much more in-depth exploration. Those dangerous ancient ruins are much more difficult to explore. But no matter how bad the ancient ruins are, they have evolved from the supreme world of rules. The gods dare not enter them at all. If they do, they will most likely die. Only the other shore realm and the Holy Lord can go in and explore. In the 6 ancient ruins in the star map, even the saints are in danger, and saints have fallen there in the past. The human emperor suspected that these 6 ruins were most likely left by the strongest of the supremes, the Peak Supreme. It is also possible that one of them was left by Tianzuan. Xing Lao said in a deep voice, "Do you want Xiao Wuzi and the others to go in again?" The human emperor shook his head. "No, I'll let Lin Moyu throw it away." Regardless of Xing Lao's shock, the human emperor expressed his thoughts. His ideas are also based on a variety of data and ultimately a comprehensive analysis. He didn't use perceptual thinking to think about problems. All the results he got were very rational. According to the human emperor's calculations, as long as Lin Moyu reaches the high-level divine lord, his combat power will be comparable to that of the holy lord. Once Lin Moyu reaches the other side, his combat power will reach the level of Half-Step Supreme. Half-Step Supreme is equivalent to Xing Lao, or even surpasses Xing Lao. By then it won't be a problem to conquer all races. But going forward, the human emperor would not be able to calculate it. He doesn't know if Lin Moyu can compare with the real Supreme when he reaches the Saint. He has no specific information on the Supreme combat power, and the gap between the Supremes is extremely small. A powerful Supreme can even easily kill a weak Supreme. 6 ancient ruins that are currently known to be extremely dangerous have not been explored before. Over the years, the human race's saints have been there many times, and a total of 2 saints died inside, and they gained nothing. Even if Xingzu and Hao and the others are allowed to go in now, it won't have much effect. Therefore, according to the Emperor's calculation, the person most likely to gain from it is Lin Moyu. Of course not now. It would be best to wait until Lin Moyu reaches the other side realm, at least to the peak of the gods. If you go now, it will be no different than sending yourself to death. Xing Lao thought deeply. I think I should ask him about this matter and let him decide on his own. It's so dangerous, after all, anything is possible inside. The human emperor nodded. This is natural and cannot be forced. It is up to him to decide. After dozens of days of preparation, the army of the 100 Race Alliance finally assembled and began to march towards the human race. They have a fierce momentum and occupy a vast star field. There are hundreds of races, and each race has sent out troops in large numbers. Taken together, the number has exceeded 1 billion. While they were preparing, the human race was also constantly increasing its troops to deal with this war. But the human race's military strength is only about 500 million, which is much worse than the 100 Race Alliance. Fortunately, the human race has powerful war weapons. Every fortress and warship is stronger than the alliance of hundreds of clans. Among all races, when it comes to the strength of war weapons, the human race is undoubtedly the first. With these war weapons, humans are not afraid even if their numbers are small. What's more, what really determines the outcome of this war is the battle between the saints on the other side. The human race controls all the movements of the 100 Races Alliance. When the 100 Races Alliance first took action, the human race was already moving. An army of 500 million advanced, and countless battleships and fortresses were deployed in the starry sky. This time we are facing the enemy head-on. Whether it is the alliance of hundreds of races or the human race, they all need a head-on battle. If the human race wins this battle, the momentum of the alliance of 100 races will plummet. If they lose, the human race will need to retreat. However, this battle was not a real decisive battle. After all, the Holy Lord did not send out many people, and the background of both sides did not take action. The war between powerful clans is not as simple as imagined. The battle between the two sides was tens of millions of kilometers apart, facing each other from afar. The other shores of the human race have long been distributed among all parties in the army, and they have to deal with the other shores of the 100 Race Alliance. In terms of the number of people on the other side, the human race is also lagging behind. But the human race has a war fortress, which can make up for it a little. Coupled with the human race's other side realm, the combat power is obviously stronger than those of the weaker races in the other side realm. We are both on the other side, but the gap is not small. On the God of War Fortress, Sword Saint, War Saint and Lin Mohan stood side by side. Facing them far away is the Demon Lord of the Abyss, the Black Gold Saint, and the Born Saint. When the Demon Lord of the Abyss saw Lin Mohan, he couldn't help but sneered. Have all the saints of your human race died? You actually sent a little girl from the other side realm. The Sword Saint sneered, it's better than a person like you who is afraid of death. He doesn't even dare to come in his own body, but only comes in his clone. The Demon Lord of the Abyss does not come with his true body, but with a branch. However, this clone is very strong and has reached the level of a saint. Refining clones is the talent of the Demon Clan. No one knows how many clones the Abyss Demon Lord has. But for such a powerful clone, he is only one thick. The clone of the Holy Lord is also called the first clone. The combat power is weaker than the original body, but it is better than the ordinary other side realm. The Abyss Demon Lord sneered, although it's just a clone, it's enough to kill the other side. Lin Mohan's expression was cold, his sword energy rising, you can try it. The Demon Lord of the Abyss looked at Lin Mohan, little girl, you have a bad temper. Why do you look familiar to me? I have never seen you before. Lin Mohan said, dead people don't know. Ding. The Sword Saint unsheathed his long sword and let out a sword cry, and countless cracks suddenly appeared in the starry sky. The invisible sword intent locked onto the Blood Ox Holy Lord, I've given this bull head to me. I'll treat you all to roast beef tonight, roast beef from the Holy Lord realm. Her voice resounded through the starry sky, and the human warriors suddenly boiled with fighting spirit and roared angrily. The war was about to break out, and the Holy Lord Blood Ox was so angry that he was trembling all over. Someone actually wanted to turn him into roast beef. As a saint, when have you ever been insulted like this? At this time, another wave of fighting intent fell on the Black Gold Saint. The War Saint raised up a powerful aura and locked onto the War Saint. Add another dish, roasted eagle meat. Lin Mohan's sword intent also rose and locked firmly on the Abyss Demon Lord. The three of them distributed them according to what they had agreed upon in advance. The Abyss Demon Lord clicked his tongue and said, then let's see who kills whom. I will help you after I kill this little girl. Today, the human race will lose two saints. The Blood Ox Holy Lord sneered, today I also want to love the flesh and blood of the human race Holy Lord. War. Following the Juggernaut's roar, the human race took the lead in attacking. Countless beams of light were fired from the battleship and exploded in the starry sky. The alliance of hundreds of tribes formed a fighting formation and quickly launched a counterattack, and the war officially began. The other shore realm flies out and fights far away from the battlefield. The battle in the other shore realm is too powerful, and the aftermath of the battle alone is enough to cause heavy damage to both sides. Walk. This is especially true for the Holy Lords. They stay further away and open up battlefields independently. The Abyss Demon Lord smiled sinisterly and said, little girl, come and die. He turned into a ball of dark green flames and flew hundreds of millions of kilometers in an instant. Lin Mohan sneered and turned into a stream of light to pierce the starry sky. The speed was not slower than the Demon Lord of the Abyss. Sword Saint and War Saint have also taken action. Sword Saint's sword intent cuts through the starry sky and cuts off the galaxy. The Holy Blood Bull roared, and a red mad bull appeared in the starry sky. The mad cow has two horns on its head, one of which thunders and lightning flashes, forming a sky full of snow and sea. The other horn was blazing with flames, as if it was going to burn up the starry sky. In the sea of thunder and lightning, a sword energy shot out, and the Sword Saint struck down in the air. The Blood Ox Saint activated his spell, and the two seas of thunder and fire merged into one, blocking the Sword Saint. On the other side, the Black Gold Saint has evolved billions of black gold streams of light, like a big net, overwhelmingly surrounding the War Saint, trying to trap him to death. Speed is the advantage of the Black Gold Saint. His speed is so fast that it is difficult for fellow saints to see clearly. But there is no need to see clearly. The War Saint Lord sacrificed the God of War Spear, and the God of War Gun roared continuously, tearing the big net to pieces. Then he pointed the tip of the God of War's gun and locked onto the Black Gold Saint. The Black Gold Saint suddenly slowed down, and the space around him was frozen. The God of War Spear turned into a giant of 100,000 meters in an instant, crushing towards the Black Gold Saint. The Black Gold Saint's face changed slightly, and he took out a shield full of feathers. I want to see how many spears you can stab. The Abyss Demon Lord stopped and looked at Lin Mohan with a sneer. Little girl, you are going to die soon. Do you have any last words? I can help you take them back. Lin Mohan slowly drew out the Heaven and Earth sword from behind. Your clone, in a world without rules, is not a saint, it is too weak. The next second, the sword light illuminated the starry sky. The sword light exploded in the starry sky, and the sword energy swept across the starry sky. Hundreds of millions of miles apart, several people from the other side who were fighting against each other sensed this aura at the same time, and their expressions changed drastically. Each of them felt pain on their skin, as if they were being targeted by sword energy. There is a supreme will in the sword energy. This will seems to be able to cut through the sky and destroy the entire world. However, at this time, Lin Mohan didn't really use the sword, she just raised the Heaven and Earth sword. The Abyss Demon Lord's face changed drastically, and his eyes showed disbelief. Impossible, you are just the other side, how could you be like this? Strong. Lin Mohan didn't explain. She shouted softly and slashed with his sword. Cut through the air with one sword. The starry sky shattered, and the sword light, which was countless times brighter than before, swept across the starry sky in an instant. The power of the rules boiled completely, evolving into countless sharp swords, and the swords turned into a world composed of swords. This world surrounded the Demon Lord of the Abyss, and gave him nowhere to escape. The fire of the abyss that shrouded the whole body and never went out all year round was extinguished at this moment. His true body was finally revealed. He was as skinny as a stick, and his whole body was black. He was clearly a ferocious demon. The Demon Lord of the Abyss screamed in horror, "Who are you? Who are you?" Lin Mohan's beautiful voice came, "The dead don't deserve to know." The Demon Lord of the Abyss exploded with all his strength, and the fire of the abyss burned again. He tried to resist, but to no avail. The world composed of swords exploded in the starry sky, and the entire starry sky was blown to pieces. The layers of space are broken, exposing deep space. Space riots occurred in deep space, but then the space riots were also annihilated. The power of this sword was so ridiculously strong that even space riots were suppressed. The terrifying power reached the deepest part of the world and hit the world barrier. It seemed like the whole world was roaring. On the other side, hundreds of millions of miles away, everyone was spitting blood and was knocked upside down. There were numerous wounds on their bodies, as if they had been slashed with sharp swords. There was shock in their eyes, but more of fear. Just the aftermath can injure them hundreds of millions of miles away, which is really terrifying. They looked at Lin Mohan, this extraordinary and heroic female swordsman holding a sword, so brilliant at this moment. With the body of the other shore realm, she killed the Abyss Demon Lord with one sword. Even if it is just a clone of the Abyss Demon Lord, it is not the real body, and there is no world of rules. But no matter what, it is much stronger than the ordinary other side realm. With this sword, Lin Mohan was like a female sword fairy, with unparalleled grace. After Lin Mohan slashed out this sword, his face turned slightly pale, but his breath was still stable. She suddenly turned around, returned to the battlefield, and attacked the alien race. The alien on the other side that she was targeting was so frightened that she turned around and ran away with a strange scream. But before flying for a while, a sword light cut through the starry sky and penetrated directly. The powerful Beyond Realm was blown to pieces in the sword light, and his flesh and blood was all over the starry sky. Lin Mohan waved her hand, and a piece of flesh flew back and was collected by her. "Xiao Yu needs it." Lin Mohan muttered to herself and then headed towards other side. The Abyss Demon Lord was killed with one sword, and the Black Gold Saint Lord and the Blood Oxen Saint Lord's eyes widened at the same time. This is impossible. The two of them coincidentally exchanged words. But that's the truth, nothing is impossible. The War Saint's eyes shrank sharply, and he finally understood why the Sword Saint would trust her to fight against the Abyss Demon Lord alone. This Lin Mohan was actually so strong. Even he didn't dare say he could take the sword strike just now without any harm. Maybe you can use the God of War spear to catch it. If you don't have a magic weapon, you will be seriously injured even if you don't die. Both brothers and sisters are monsters, the War Saint cursed, and the War God spear roared again, heading towards the Black Gold Saint. At the same time, he stuffed an elixir into his mouth, and his aura surged, and even the God of War spear became more powerful. The Black Gold Saint gave a strange cry, took out a golden spear, and threw it violently. At this moment, he no longer had the will to fight. Seeing the Abyss Demon Lord being killed with his own eyes, the panic in his heart rose to the extreme. If that female monster comes back, maybe he will die too. That sword was really amazing and terrifying. The golden spear collided with the God of War spear and exploded to pieces on the spot. The Black Gold Saint spit out blood and flew thousands of kilometers away. At the same time, he shouted loudly, "Retreat!" The sword light lit up, accompanied by the angry roar of the sword master. The sword light illuminated the starry sky again, and a bright star-like sword light appeared in the starry sky. The screams of the Blood Oxen Holy Lord were heard in the sword light, and the Blood Oxen Holy Lord fled quickly. Half of his body was cut off, and the blood of the Holy Lord spilled into the sky. The army of the 100 Clans Alliance received the order from the Black Gold Saint. After the order, the retreat immediately began. Although they retreated, it was not very chaotic. Everyone knew that if there was chaos at this time, the result would be death. The human race has been chasing him for thousands of miles and has no intention of letting him go. It wasn't until he returned to the other side that the Sword Master ordered to stop the pursuit. Once the other shore takes action, ordinary soldiers will die a lot, which is not necessary. They have already won this battle. No one expected that victory would come so quickly. From start to finish, it only takes 10 minutes. It can be said that the battle is over before the warm-up is over. The reason was Lin Mohan's stunning and brilliant sword, which directly killed the Abyss Demon Lord and quickly established the victory. This is something no one can imagine, especially the War Saint. He originally thought that although Lin Mohan was stunning, he was already very strong if he could compete with the Demon Lord of the Abyss. Wait until you defeat the Black Gold Saint, and then come over to help Lin Mohan. He never thought that he could kill the Black Gold Saint. After all, the opponent is a saint, and coupled with his status as a Golden Eagle clan member, it will be difficult to kill him if he wants to escape. Unexpectedly, I underestimated Lin Mohan, and Lin Mohan killed the Abyss Demon Lord with just one sword. Moreover, they were also hunting down the Bianjing people later. 3 of them died in the hands of Lin Mohan alone. The Sword Saint came back carrying half the body of the Blood Bull Saint, and his voice resounded throughout the army, "Half-blood beef, we will discuss the merits when we get back." The soldiers suddenly burst out into shocking roars, filled with joy. This battle was so joyful to win, if I want to describe it, it would be a joyful one. The entire battle was monitored by the Human Emperor Network, and everyone's performance was clearly known. The ownership of blood beef should be based on merit, and many people can get a small piece. That is the flesh and blood of the Holy Lord. Even a piece the size of a fingernail can be regarded as a family heirloom. Of course, Shengzuan and Bianjing will not participate in it. This kind of thing has happened many times in recent decades, and no one has any objection. Zhan Shengzuan looked at Lin Mohan. "Fairy Han, what did you just say? Is there any way to teach that sword?" Lin Mohan shook her head and refused directly. "You can't learn." The sword master said, "I've asked before, this sword requires special blood, and no one else can use it except Fairy Han. So that's it." Zhan Shengzuan finally understood. He then thought, "Can little friend Lin also learn this sword?" Lin Mohan shook his head again. "No." The Sword Saint laughed loudly. "Don't ask, I have already asked what you should ask. This sword is unique to Mohan." Zhan Shengzuan nodded. "This battle can be won so quickly because of Fairy Han. I think after this battle, Fairy Han's name will spread throughout the starry sky." Just as Zhang Xingzuan said, Lin Mohan's name had already spread on the way back to the army. Originally, the world only knew of the incomparably beautiful fairy Hanyang, but now she is also known as the peerless female sword fairy. Although most people don't know how strong Lin Mohan is, those in the other side realm know about it, and some peak gods also know about it. This is a fierce woman who can kill the demon lord of the abyss with one sword. Although she is only on the other side for the first time, she has the fighting power of the Holy Lord. Some people know more about Lin Mohan and the relationship between her and Lin Moyu. These people were even more shocked. Both siblings were perverts. Now it seemed that the older sister was even more perverted than the younger brother. At just a few years old, he has already reached the other side, and his combat prowess is even comparable to that of the Holy Lord. If he becomes a Holy Lord in the future, that will be great. In the imperial city of the Demon Tribe and the Abyss series, the Abyss Demon Lord erupted with a terrifying roar, the fire of the abyss boiled violently, volcanoes erupted everywhere on the entire planet, and the planet was quickly infested with ink, covered in green. Asshole, bastard. Who are you? Who are you? How can the human race have such a strong other side realm? The Demon Lord of the Abyss was going crazy. His first clone was killed, and he died so simply that he had no ability to resist. Although the first clone does not have a powerful magic weapon, nor does it have any original magic, it still has the combat power of the Saint Realm, which is more than enough to deal with the other shore realm. Now he was killed instantly by a person from the other side realm with one sword. The death of the clone also directly led to the failure of this battle that had been prepared for many years. The anger of the Abyss Demon Lord swept across the entire galaxy, and the fire of the abyss continued to erupt, turning the galaxy into a sea of fire. Countless weak demons were burned to ashes by the fire of the abyss. Kamishiro, Central Temple. Tianqingzhen and Heishengzhen stared at each other with big eyes. In front of them, a picture was being played back. It was the scene of Lin Mohan using his sword to cut through the air and easily kill the Abyss Demon Lord. Saint Hao held the teacup in his hand for a long time and forgot to drink it. He murmured, "My brother is a little monster, my sister is a big monster. Tian Xingzun is not much better than Hao Xingzun. When I first entered the other side, I have such fighting power. Why do I feel that we old guys are all useless?" Saint Hao deeply felt the same. It is indeed a bit useless. Even I can't handle this sword. Tian Xingzun said, but it seems that she only has the power of one sword. After she slashed with one sword, her aura dropped a lot. Wu Xingzuan's eyes were sharp and he could see the clues. After slashing out his sword, it seemed that Lin Mohan's momentum was still strong, but most of his strength had been spent. So she stopped looking for trouble with the Black Gold Saint and the Blood Ox Saint, and instead went to the other side of the world to kill the police. It should be that she didn't have the strength to strike out with the second sword, so she settled for the next best thing. Otherwise, paired with the War Saint or the Sword Saint, you can kill another saint. Wu Xingzuan said, even the power of one sword is enough. When she grows a little more and reaches the level of Xingzuan. His eyes were full of smiles, as if he saw the human race, the moment of ultimate victory. Tian Xingzun said, it's not that simple. Several powerful clans have a lot of background. Those guys are not easy to deal with. Saint Hao didn't think so much. He was in a very good mood at this moment. No matter what, our human race has another top fighter. This is a good thing. This is indeed the case. It is indeed a good thing that the human race has another person with combat power equivalent to that of the Holy Lord. Originally, hundreds of tribes formed an alliance, and the number of their saints has exceeded that of the human race. Now the human race has one more Holy Lord in combat power, and the first avatar of the Abyss Demon Lord has been killed. The gap has been narrowed a lot, which is indeed a good thing. Both of them knew that the next battlefield should be peaceful for a while. Not only the battlefield in the Suzaku Star territory, the other 3 battlefields will also be much peaceful. After encountering this huge defeat, the alliance of hundreds of clans will inevitably retreat and regroup. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the human race can continue to train their people. Unknowingly, the human race has regarded the battlefield as a training ground and a place to cultivate destiny. Time passed day by day, Hutianxingzuan and Wuxingzuan as expected. The defeat of the 100 Tribes Alliance was extremely fatal to their morale. In the following decades, they made no major moves again. Small-scale battles have been taking place, and the human race still maintains a record of more victories than defeats. Both sides seem to have fallen into some kind of special tacit understanding, maintaining a balance and waiting for the next war. What can be expected is that when the next frontal war breaks out, its scale will inevitably be greater than the previous one. 20 years passed in the blink of an eye, and Lin Moyu finally stopped. He has been drawing runes, and the process of learning inheritance is the process of drawing runes. Shengfu Tianzuan pays more attention to practice, and all theories are prepared for practice. According to the thoughts of the Holy Talisman Master, the Talisman Master must continue to draw runes. After drawing a rune hundreds of millions of times, no matter how talented he is, he will become much more comfortable. Explain this sentence in a higher level. The truth is that practice makes perfect, but Holy Talisman Tianzuan. His thoughts are also in line with Lin Moyu's thoughts. Lin Moyu also likes to practice. To outsiders, he had been practicing in seclusion for 50 years, but to him, it was a full 1,200 years. Lin Moyu didn't know how many runes he had drawn, they were countless. The huge space in the treasure ship's warehouse was nearly half filled. In the space of the training room, there are runes everywhere, all kinds of runes, large and small runes of different levels, floating densely in the training room. The Tao poison has finally disappeared. I also master all the rune knowledge under the ancient talisman. 1,200 years, time flies so fast. Lin Moyu felt the changes in himself. This was the longest time he had been in seclusion. He felt like he was much older. 1,200 years have left traces of time on him. Lin Moyu really felt the power of time and understood what it means to practice without time. It is very common for those deities to stay in seclusion for the entire year. 610 uses formations during retreat to speed up the flow of time. After the retreat, the big world automatically corrects the time and erases the traces of time, which will not affect longevity. Otherwise, if the god's lifespan lasted for 20,000 years, and someone like Lin Moyu stayed in seclusion for 1,200 years, 1/10 of his life would be gone. In fact, his state of cultivation has not improved at all, so this kind of retreat is naturally not cost-effective. The time formation slowly stopped, the flow of time returned to normal, and the power of the big world penetrated and enveloped Lin Moyu. 1,200 years of rune cultivation have made Lin Moyu's soul sharper than before. Lin Moyu could clearly feel that the big world was helping him erase the traces of time. To the big world, only 50 years have actually passed, not 1,200 years. At this moment, Lin Moyu felt a sense of warmth. This feeling can only be felt by someone with an extremely sensitive soul like him. If it were told to the outside world, people would think that this is just his illusion. With a move of his hand, countless runes in the training room simultaneously fly up. Some parts disappeared and dispersed automatically, while others flew into Lin Moyu's hands and entered the treasure ship warehouse. After spending 1,200 years living with the runes day and night, Lin Moyu was extremely familiar with these runes, and could command them like an arm. It's time for the ghost tribe to come back again. Lin Moyu muttered to himself, with smiling eyes and a somewhat cold smile. A ray of light fell from the sky, and the training room changed. Lin Moyu felt like he was in the starry sky. A magnificent battle unfolded before Lin Moyu's eyes, and Lin Moyu's pupils suddenly contracted as he saw Lin Mohan. Sister is on the battlefield. The Emperor's Network presented the battle from 20 years ago in front of Lin Moyu. From the moment he saw Lin Mohan, Lin Moyu's attention focused entirely on Lin Mohan, with nothing else in mind. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, to ensure Lin Mohan's safety. The outcome of this battle seemed unimportant to Lin Moyu. He realized he was selfish, caring only about Lin Mohan's safety and indifferent to the lives of others. Is this human nature? Lin Moyu suddenly understood the heavenly sovereign a bit. When everything was fine in the world, the gods could do many things for the entire world, even at some cost. But when it came to endangering themselves, the gods could become selfish. Lin Moyu realized he was selfish too, but his selfishness was different from those who left the world behind. He hadn't fled the world, nor was he trying to save the people of the world. He just wanted to do something for his loved ones, for his lover, for his friends. There were things here that he couldn't let go of, so Lin Moyu had firmly chosen to stay. In the projection, the great battle began, and Moyu's sense of tension rose sharply. Lin Moyu's entire body tensed up, even his relaxed muscles tightened instantly. Lin Mohan unexpectedly faced the abyssal demon sovereign. Even though Lin Mohan was already at the other side realm, the abyssal demon sovereign was a holy sovereign. Lin Moyu wanted to ask why, what made him able to suppress it, but Lin Moyu knew deep down that since the Emperor's network showed him the projection, Lin Mohan must be fine. In the scene, Lin Mohan drew out the heaven and earth sword, and in an instant, the projection became radiant, with billions of stars shrouded in the light of the sword. Until Lin Mohan drew his sword, the flames on the abyssal demon sovereign were completely extinguished, revealing a look of horror. In the light of the sword, the abyssal demon sovereign was crushed to pieces. So powerful! Lin Moyu was surprised. This sword of Lin Mohan's was indeed too powerful, a bit beyond expectations. What realm is sister really in? Lin Moyu knew his elder sister had always been strong, mainly because of her cultivation speed. He hadn't expected that not only was his elder sister extraordinarily talented in cultivation, but her combat power was also extraordinary. In that moment just now, Lin Moyu felt that his elder sister's realm had reached the level of a saint. As the projection disappeared, the voice of the Emperor's network sounded. Lin Mohan is currently at the initial stage of the other side realm, with combat power comparable to a saint. This is something she brought back with her, to give to you. She also has a message for you. Lin Moyu asked, what message? Suddenly, Lin Mohan's voice sounded all around. Little brother, don't worry about your elder sister. She's already over the pressure value. This is the message Lin Mohan sent through someone else, with her voice and tone, bearing Lin Mohan's signature. Lin Moyu pondered over this message and asked, did you tell her? The Emperor's network responded, yes, she was entitled to know. Lin Moyu asked, she didn't say anything else? The Emperor's network replied, she said she believes in you. Just that? Just that. Lin Moyu suddenly laughed, she's really my elder sister. Lin Mohan's reaction was exactly the same as he remembered his sister, doing what she thought was right, which meant that regardless of what choices he made, Lin Mohan would support him. It also told him that she would do what she thought was right. Lin Moyu took a deep breath, I understand. Is there anything else you need to tell me? There is. The Emperor's network once again projected, and the projection was filled with information about the fighting world. This is the latest information obtained by the Divine Wanderer of the Heavenly Saint Curtain. There's more to discuss after you come back. Lin Moyu nodded and carefully examined it. Moving mountains, dividing seas, splitting the earth, patrolling the sky, and the strongest stars. In addition, there was mention of a legendary lair. At the end of the information about the fighting world, the Emperor's network also presented several possibilities it had analyzed. After reading it, Lin Moyu couldn't help but murmur, it seems that no matter what the result is, it's not necessarily a good one. However, the Emperor asked, what's your plan? Lin Moyu said, I think if it's the second possibility, it might be the best result for us. The second possibility analyzed by the Emperor's network was that there were no gods in the fighting world, and their so-called fighting emperors were at the peak of the gods. In this case, it would be much better than the first and third possibilities because there would be no chance for the gods to intervene. If the fighting world was a legacy left by some powerful existence, it might attract that powerful existence, leading to the destruction of the world. So Lin Moyu thought that if it was the second possibility, it would be the best result. Lin Moyu said, regardless of which one it is, we can only take it step by step, do what we need to do, and see how it goes. The Emperor's Network said, you're right. There's one more thing I need to tell you, but how you choose to handle it is up to you. The star map unfolded, revealing 6 bright lights. After many years of exploration, we have determined that these 6 places are the most dangerous ancient ruins. According to the information we have, there may be the remains of peak gods or even divine seals in these 6 ancient ruins. Lin Moyu's eyes narrowed. You mean there were major battles in ancient times? The Emperor's Network said, according to the current information we have, there is a high probability that gods died in battle. Lin. Gods. Lin Moyu originally thought that all the gods had left, but it turned out that some had died in battle. It seems that not all gods are selfish, some are willing to fight to the end for the world, even to their death. Lin Moyu said, do you want me to go in there and find the remains of the gods? The Emperor's Network was straightforward. With your abilities, if you could obtain the remains of the great god, even if the god in the fighting world is indeed a god, we would still have a chance. However, these 6 ruins are extremely dangerous. There have been saints who died in them. Whether to go or not, and when to go, it's up to you to decide. Lin Moyu said, let me see the information about these 6 major ruins, including the information about other ancient ruins. I want all of it. The Emperor's Network said, the permissions have long been open to you. You can check as you please. The projection disappeared, and the Emperor's Network went silent. Lin Moyu didn't move, but began to look at the information about the ancient ruins. Although the Emperor's Network said it was up to him to decide whether to go or not, could he really not go? Settled. It was definitely necessary to go. As for when to go, he would decide later. Lin Moyu looked at the information about the ancient ruins and gradually understood their origins. The ancient ruins were actually evolved from the rule worlds of the great gods. He had entered the rule worlds of the great gods more than once, but those rule worlds were intact, with orderly rules inside. But the rule worlds of the ancient ruins belonged to the shattered rule worlds, losing control and becoming chaotic. Over the long years, the chaotic rule worlds continued to evolve, giving rise to various dangers. The stronger the rule world, the more dangerous the ruins born from its evolution. The reason why the 6 ruins were so dangerous was also because of their original rule worlds. According to Lin Moyu's speculation, at least it would take the rule world of a peak god to have this ability. And among them, one might even be the rule world of a god, and the degree of danger was unimaginable. Lin Moyu inferred from the information about the other ancient ruins and the 8 major ruins. One day later, Lin Moyu left the training room, and the Human Emperor Network interfered with reality and directly started teleportation for Lin Moyu. The poison of enlightenment has dissipated, and Lin Moyu can enlighten again. Using the power of enlightenment to practice the 2 laws of time and space can save a lot of time. The laws of time and space cannot be practiced in the time formation, so each step requires a large amount of time. 1,000 years? Even 2,000 or 3,000 years may not be enough. Lin Moyu didn't have so much time to waste now. It was less than 1,400 years before the Doji arrived. Moreover, preparations need to be made in advance. The real time left for Lin Moyu is only 5, because of Bai Che. Lin Moyu needs to eliminate all ethnic groups and complete the unification of the world within these 500 or 600 years before he can concentrate his efforts to welcome the arrival of the Doji. However, with the current strength of the human race, it is impossible to eliminate all races and truly unify the world. Lin Moyu believes that elimination is not about defeating all ethnic groups, but about using spicy elements on the Haka team. Only in this way can we alleviate the cause and effect in the big world and keep the big world in a good state. Wait until the Doji arrives, defeat the Doji, and plunder the origin of the Doji to repair the big world. If you are lucky, You may be able to build a new divine path, allowing the saints in the world to rush onto the divine path and achieve great success. Not only the Holy Master, but also Lin Moyu himself. Only by walking the divine path, becoming the Supreme, and repairing the ruins of the great world can 227 have a chance to go further. This matter is intertwined and cannot be overturned. The plan to eliminate various tribes is a huge and complicated one, and it cannot be leaked out in case each tribe escapes and flees outside the territory. If we can't kill them all, we won't be able to cut off the cause and effect for the world, and there will be no way to talk about other things. Lin Moyu took a battleship, sailed from deep space, and left the human race with a sound of healing. As for Lin Moyu's departure, no one except Xing Lao, Renhuang Network, and several saints knew about it. Nowadays, Lin Moyu's actions are kept strictly confidential and have almost become the top secret of the human race. In the central temple of the divine city, Xiao Wu, who had just finished practicing for half an hour, suddenly shouted, "I've been healed again." Saint Hao smiled and said, "Yes, he went out again." Xiao Wu tilted her head. "Master doesn't play with me either. Although he doesn't let me do anything, it doesn't seem to be interesting." Xiao Wu seemed to miss the busy days before. Although she was busy at that time, she was very fulfilling. It's quite interesting to watch those guys break through the levels one by one, either succeeding or failing. Saint Hao smiled and said, "Your master is too busy. He is doing big things." Xiao Wu's face was full of innocence. "What a big deal. Can 4 spirits rectify it?" Saint Hao said, "If Xiao Wugan can help, he must practice hard. Only when his realm is high can he help." Xiao Wu said, "Oh," and immediately asked, "What realm do you want?" Saint Hao thought for a while and realized that the higher he got, the better. Xiao Wu seemed to understand. "The higher the better. Then do you want to be as tall as the old master?" These words made Saint Hao laugh. Xiao Wu's old master was Tianzuan. How could Tianzuan appear in this world now? Strangely enough, since Xiao Wu was reincarnated into a human being, her thoughts seemed to have become more limited. Except for retaining some memories of his time as a weapon spirit, his personality is more like that of a child. Especially after accepting the memory of the original owner of the body, Xiao Wu felt that she had just become an adult and was a child in the human race, so she should play. So she is like this now, with a mature body but a mind like a child, but she doesn't understand much. Sometimes, the knowledge she knows is more profound than that of the saints, and even the saints cannot understand what she says. All that knowledge was gained from the Heavenly Lord's sermons, and they were originally taught to the Supreme Being. It's just that Xiao Wu couldn't translate the knowledge Tianzuan said, Tian Finley _. Saint Hao just joked that the higher the better, but Xiao Wu took it seriously. Xiao Wu suddenly said very seriously, "Then Xiao Wu will also start practicing, and he will help the master in the future." With that said, she put away the toys and Yuxia started practicing. Saint Hao and Saint Tian looked at each other and smiled, feeling that it was interesting. They didn't know how long Xiao Wu could hold on this time. Yao Xiao Wu is now the God King, the 3rd level God King. If you want to cultivate to the other side, you don't know that you need more than 4 armies. Saint Hao smiled and said, "Let her play." In his eyes, Xiao Wu is his junior, a little girl he likes very much. Although Tianxingzhen is not as good as Heixingzhen, he still likes Xiaochen. Suddenly, an aura unique to breakthrough surged from Xiao Wu's body. Xiao Wu's realm broke through the 1st level, from the 3rd level of God King to the 4th level of God King. Holy Master Hao laughed dumbly. "The qualifications are really good. I broke through the 1st level in the blink of an eye." Tianxingzhen said, "Xiao Wu is just having fun, but her cultivation talent is actually as good as yours, or even 7 thick areas." Saint Hao deeply believed that it was true. Xiao Wu has been a weapon spirit for countless years, and has experienced countless sermons from the Holy Lord, and even more sermons from the Supreme Lord. "I preach again and again, but I don't know how much knowledge I have absorbed and how many people have been hindered. Every bit of Taoyuan is a blessing, and blessings accumulate more and more, which can be said to be a blessing. After Xiao Wu transformed into a human, these blessings were also brought over and became Xiao Wu's strongest foundation. Xiao Wu has been playing for these years without practicing much, and has become the king of understanding with true understanding. This speed has surpassed most practitioners. Saint Hao and Saint Tian agreed that Xiao Wu's cultivation qualifications were better than theirs. Just when Saint Hao thought that Xiao Wu would stop practicing, he didn't expect that Xiao Wu continued to practice and didn't stop. This is completely different from before. In the past, Xiao Wu would not practice for more than 3 hours at most, and would stop as long as there was a small breakthrough. This time, Xiao Wu seemed to be working hard. 3 days later, Xiaoxiasheng once again lost his breath. Under the eyes of the two saints, Xiao Wu broke through to the 5th level of the God King. 3 days later, Xiao Wu broke through to the 6th level of the God King. Then 4 days later, Pai Lingkui reached the Wang level of the formation. Saint Hao and Saint Tian were stunned. They broke through 3 times in 10 days. What the hell is this speed of cultivation? Moreover, the two of them could see that Xiao Wu's foundation was quite solid and there was nothing frivolous about it. Tian Xingzuan frowned. Human Emperor, can you see how Yalai will return to the group? Although they have sharp vision, they are still inferior to Renhuang network. Especially here, the Human Emperor's network is extremely powerful and can monitor every change in energy. The Human Emperor network quickly responded. Her soul contains powerful power. Every time she breaks through, a trace of power will be drawn out. Saint Hao suddenly realized, it turns out that this is the case. It should be the power of Huanwu Tianzuan, and only Tianzuan can achieve this step. Hidden power in your soul and only release it when you practice. With the current strength of the big world, it is impossible to achieve this step. Human Emperor Network said, it's more than just one kind of power. Saint Hao was even more surprised. Is this Xiao Wu's blessing? More than one heavenly lord helped her. Tian Xingzuan sighed. It's really enviable. Not only does she have a deep foundation, but she also has Tianzuan to clear the way for her.